Usually when you think about booking an international flight, you're imagining a getaway.
Oh, yeah, definitely. A vacation.
Right. Maybe you are picturing yourself exploring some historic ruins or, trying out the local street food in a bustling night market.
Or just lying on a beach somewhere.
Exactly. You are essentially thinking about leisure.
Yeah, you've got your itinerary, your hotel booked, maybe some sightseeing tours lined up. The entire framework of the trip is built around escaping your daily life to just relax.
Right. But what if instead of booking a tour of the Colosseum or like a snorkeling trip, you were booking a total knee replacement?
Wow, yeah. Or a highly complex cardiac surgery.
Exactly. It completely changes the vibe.
It completely flips the script on what international travel actually means. I mean, it changes the entire paradigm from leisure to literal life-saving logistics. You are no longer a tourist. You are a patient navigating a global system.
And if you have interacted with modern healthcare lately, you probably understand the impulse behind this massive shift.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, maybe you've stared at a medical bill that looked more like a mortgage payment.
Yeah, or you've been told you have to wait 6 months just to get an MRI while you're just, sitting there in chronic pain.
It is incredibly frustrating. For a lot of people, navigating their local healthcare system feels entirely hopeless.
It does, and that frustration leaves people feeling trapped. There is this inherent assumption that you have absolutely no options outside of your own geographic borders.
Right, like you're just stuck.
Exactly. So you just have to accept whatever exorbitant prices or agonizing wait times are dictated to you locally.
Which brings us to the mission of the day's deep dive. We are unpacking the booming, multi-billion-dollar world of medical tourism.
It's a huge topic.
It really is.
Yeah.
Millions of people are simply bypassing their local healthcare systems, they're crossing international borders, and completely reshaping how we think about accessing medical care.
Yeah.
Today we're looking at some fascinating insights straight from a script by the team at Placidway Medical Tourism. They are basically on the front lines of this massive shift.
And their data gives us a window into how people are actually doing this safely. It is a critical perspective because this isn't just about, finding a cheap clinic on the internet.
Right, definitely not.
It is about an entirely new, highly organized infrastructure that most people don't even know exists.
Okay, let's unpack this because the sheer scale of this trend is kind of hard to wrap your head around at first.
It really is.
When we look at the numbers Placidway is tracking, they are heavy hitters. We're talking about 14 to 16 million people traveling to another country for medical procedures.
Yeah.
Every single year.
14 to 16 million. Just pause and think about the logistics of that number.
It's wild.
That is not a fringe movement. That is not some niche group of extreme budget hunting travelers. That is a massive global demographic shift occurring annually.
Yeah.
I mean, it represents the population of a small country entirely relocating for medical care every 12 months.
And the primary driver, the financial discrepancy. Patients are saving anywhere from 40 to 80% on costs compared to getting that exact same care in the U.S. or the U.K. or Western Europe.
What's fascinating here is how these savings are translating into massive economic momentum, because we aren't just talking about a few people saving a few bucks.
Right.
The global medical tourism market is booming to the point where it's valued at roughly $84.5 billion in 2026.
$84.5 billion.
Wow.
Wow.
This is a massive industrialized ecosystem. And if you look at the underlying economics of why a surgery is so much cheaper abroad, it makes perfect sense.
Right, because the immediate assumption people make is, well, if it's 80% cheaper, the quality must be 80% worse.
Right, the discount surgery idea.
Exactly. But that's not how global economics works.
Not at all. You have to factor in the systemic differences. In places like the U.S., the cost of healthcare is massively inflated by factors that have absolutely nothing to do with actual medicine. Well, you have incredibly high labor costs. You have astronomical liability and malpractice insurance rates for doctors.
Oh, sure.
And layers upon layers of administrative bloat just to deal with insurance companies. In many other countries, medical education is highly subsidized by the government, meaning doctors don't graduate with $500,000 in debt.
That's a huge difference right there.
It is. The cost of living is lower, and the liability frameworks are completely different. The medical tools and the surgeon skill can be identical, but the overhead is just a fraction of the cost.
So affordability is obviously a huge catalyst. Placidway highlights a study showing that 51% of Americans who go abroad do so simply because care is too expensive at home.
51%.
More than half. It shows that travel isn't a luxury for them. It's a financial necessity to avoid bankruptcy.
Exactly.
But affordability isn't the only thing driving that $84.5 billion market.
No, not at all. There are other major catalysts that completely challenge our assumptions. People are traveling to escape those brutal wait times, to get highly personalized attention,
Right.
and crucially, to access cutting-edge technology or treatments that are not yet approved in their home country.
That part is huge. You are essentially dealing with regulatory arbitrage.
Yes.
Just as a tech company might move to a state with better tax laws, patients are realizing they can move their bodies to jurisdictions where the healthcare math or the regulatory framework actually works in their favor.
That's exactly it.
It's like finding a massive loophole in a broken system. You're bypassing a local 10-mile traffic jam by just chartering a helicopter over it. But instead of a helicopter, it's an international flight.
I love that analogy. And if the FDA takes 10 years to approve a specific regenerative medicine and you have a degenerative disease today, you simply don't have 10 years to wait.
Right.
You are seeking out innovation that is legally or bureaucratically stalled in your own jurisdiction. It really shatters the myth that medical tourists are only seeking out discount care.
Yeah, they want better care.
Often, they are traveling to get vastly more advanced care than they could get at home.
But that raises a massive logistical issue.
Yeah.
If you are opting out of your local system to play this global regulatory arbitrage, how do you safely navigate a foreign system?
It's tricky.
Because it's clearly not just booking a flight on a discount airline, showing up in a new country, and hoping for the best at a random clinic.
No, that would be a disaster.
Right. If I don't know the local language, let alone the local medical laws, how do I not get completely taken advantage of?
It is the most important question to ask. The entire industry would collapse without trust. And this is where the concept of the medical concierge comes in, which is the exact model Placidway operates on. They are not merely acting as a travel agent booking flights. They are cureing the medical landscape for the patient. Their network spans over 40 countries, encompassing hospitals, specialty clinics, and wellness centers. But the key is that they act as a filter.
Wait, I want to push back on that a bit, though. A filter is only as good as the mesh it uses, right?
Sure.
So what does this all mean for safety? It sounds idyllic to get a knee replaced and then recover near a beautiful beach in Mexico, but how do we actually know these places are legitimate? A brochure can make any hospital look like a 5-star resort.
Oh, absolutely.
We're talking about major surgery in an unfamiliar regulatory environment.
It's a vital point. A concierge service cannot just rely on good reviews. They have to rely on hard, verifiable data. They use a rigorous vetting process anchored by specific international certifications, namely JCI and COFEPRIS, among others.
Let's actually define those, because I think a lot of people hear acronyms and just tune them out as marketing jargon. What is JCI?
JCI stands for Joint Commission International. For context, the Joint Commission is the primary body that evaluates and accredits hospitals right here in the U.S.
Oh, okay.
They are the gold standard for safety protocols, hygiene, and patient care. JCI is simply their international branch.
Nice.
So if a hospital in Mexico or India has JCI accreditation, it means they are being audited and held to the exact same rigorous, granular safety standards as a top-tier hospital in Boston or New York.
Oh, wow. That completely reframes it. It's not some arbitrary local standard.
Right. And you mentioned Mexico. COFEPRIS is essentially the Mexican equivalent of the FDA. It is a strict federal regulatory agency.
Okay, that makes sense.
So when a concierge like Placidway vets a clinic, they are ensuring these high-level regulatory baselines are met before the patient even sees the clinic as an option.
So they are actively filtering out the substandard, unregulated facilities. The patient is only choosing from a pre-vetted menu of internationally accredited hospitals.
Precisely. And the proof of this system's efficacy is in the outcomes. The data shows that patient satisfaction at these accredited international hospitals actually exceeds 90%.
90%.
Yeah. So high quality isn't being sacrificed for the sake of cost. The safety protocols are incredibly stringent, and the patient satisfaction reflects that reality.
Okay, so with those safety standards firmly anchored, where exactly are all these millions of patients going? Because if you look at the landscape, The destinations aren't just random dots on a map. The globe has essentially organized itself into specialized hubs.
It really has, because countries have realized that if they can dominate a specific medical niche, it brings in massive foreign investment. Certain regions have deliberately developed highly specialized medical infrastructures.
Let's map out the most popular destinations mentioned in the source, because the specialization is wild to look at.
Sure.
Let's start with Mexico.
Okay.
They welcome about 1.3 million medical tourists annually, mainly from North America. And they are known specifically for dental work, bariatric surgery, and regenerative medicine.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
The proximity to the U.S. obviously makes it a massive draw for people who just want to drive across the border for high-quality care at a fraction of the cost.
Then you look across the world to Turkey, which attracts roughly 2 million patients a year.
2 million?
Yeah, Turkey has positioned itself as the undisputed global leader in cosmetic procedures and hair transplants. And this isn't an accident. The Turkish government actively supports this industry.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they have a state-owned healthcare company called USHA, which strictly regulates the standards and promotes the industry internationally.
That explains why the packages in Turkey are so seamless. They deliberately bundle the surgery, the luxury hotel accommodation, and the airport transfers all together into a single, frictionless product. It is a state-backed strategy.
Exactly. It is designed to be as efficient and welcoming as possible.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's almost like looking at a global a la carte menu for the human body.
Oh, I like that.
Right. Instead of tech hubs like Silicon Valley or financial hubs like Wall Street, you have a cosmetics hub in Turkey. Or you look in India, which handles millions of patients and operates as this massive, complex surgery hub.
The scale of India's infrastructure is staggering.
Yeah.
Their top hospitals are performing highly complex cardiac, orthopedic, and oncology procedures.
Wow.
And crucially, because of their massive population, the top surgeons in India are performing an incredibly high volume of these surgeries. If you want mastery in a surgeon, you want someone who does the procedure hundreds of times a year, not dozens.
That is such a good point.
Plus, they're heavily utilizing advanced robotic technology for extreme precision. Again, this reinforces that medical tourism is about high-tech innovation and superior outcomes, not just cost-cutting.
And the global menu keeps going. You have Thailand, which combines high-tech medicine with these immersive, holistic wellness retreats.
Right.
And then Spain, which has built a massive reputation as a premier hub for IVFs and fertility treatments. The geographic specialization is so distinct.
It is. But while looking at this global menu is mind-boggling from a macro level, we have to ground this in reality. The broad strokes are fascinating, but what does an individual patient actually experience when they decide to order from this menu?
Right, because knowing that 2 million people go to Turkey is one thing, but what is the actual, tangible, step-by-step process of going from sitting on your couch in pain to getting surgery across the world to safely coming back home?
Exactly.
How does a company like Placidway actually facilitate this?
They utilize a very clear 5-step patient journey to manage the entire arc of the experience. It moves from consultation to provider match to preparation to treatment and finally aftercare.
Let's really look at that provider match phase, because this is where the traditional healthcare power dynamic gets completely upended. The price transparency here is incredible. Take a hip replacement, for example. In the U.S., you were looking at an average cost of roughly $40,000.
Which is a life-altering, potentially bankrupting amount of money for the average person.
Absolutely. And usually in a domestic system, you don't even know that's the price until 3 months after the surgery when the bill arrives in the mail.
Yeah, surprise billing.
But during the provider match with a medical concierge, you get a short list of JCI-accredited clinics. You see the doctor's specific credentials, you read patient reviews, and you get transparent upfront pricing. You see that the exact same hip replacement drops to about $13,500 in Mexico.
Wow.
Or, incredibly, $7,200 in India. From $40,000 down to $7,200.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you can see how that level of transparency completely shifts the paradigm. It's basically shifting from a paternalistic model,
Where they just tell you what to do.
right, where the doctor tells you what to do, you have no choices, and you get a surprise bill. It shifts from that to a pure, empowered consumer service model. You are shopping for the best provider for your body and your budget before any procedure happens.
And once you make that informed choice, you move into the preparation and treatment phases.
Yes, and this is where the concierge aspect becomes vital. During preparation, the team coordinates the secure transfer of your medical records, they handle the travel dates, they book the hotel reservations, they even assist with the bureaucracy of medical visas.
Oh, that's incredibly helpful.
It is. They ensure you aren't trying to figure out international medical law on your own.
And when you actually arrive for the treatment phase.
You receive your procedure at the licensed, accredited facility, but you aren't just left alone to navigate a foreign hospital. Many of these packages include a local companion.
Really?
Yes, this is a dedicated advocate on the ground with you, someone who helps with translation, navigates the hospital system, and manages the immediate post-operative logistics.
That's a brilliant detail. It almost turns a sterile, terrifying medical procedure into a hospitality service. It acknowledges that the sheer anxiety of being alone in a foreign country is a medical risk factor in itself.
Definitely.
If your cortisol is spiking because you can't communicate with a nurse, you aren't going to heal well. Having an advocate mitigates that stress.
Exactly. Stress inhibition is a major part of recovery. But of course, the actual physical recovery brings up another major logistical hurdle.
This is exactly what I wanted to ask about.
Yeah.
Because, sure, having a companion is great, and a $7,200 robotic surgery in India sounds amazing. But let's think about the reality of recovering from a major orthopedic surgery.
It's tough.
Isn't the logistics of flying home with a brand new hip a massive, painful hurdle? I mean, airplane seats are cramped, the cabin pressure fluctuates, and the risk of deep vein thrombosis or blood clots is real. How is that safe?
It is a very valid concern, and it's exactly why the final step, aftercare, is arguably the most critical part of the entire journey. You do not just wake up from surgery, get a pat on the back, and get pushed onto a 14-hour flight. That would be malpractice.
Okay, so how does the timeline actually work?
Patients recuperate locally for a set number of days or even weeks, depending on the procedure. This happens under the direct, continued supervision of their operating doctor.
I see.
The intensive healing process, the physical therapy, the monitoring for infection, all of that happens before they ever set foot in an airport. They are cleared to fly only when it is medically safe to do so.
Okay, that makes much more sense. But what happens when they do finally fly home? Are they just on their own if a complication arises a month later?
Not at all. And this is where the concierge service really bridges the gap. Once the patient returns home, the concierge remains actively in touch.
Oh, that's good.
They help facilitate remote follow-up consultations with the foreign surgeon, and they actually help connect the patient with local physicians if physical follow-ups are needed. They ensure there is a continuous transfer of medical data back to the patient's domestic healthcare system. It's a continuous spectrum of care, not an isolated transaction.
To really humanize all this data, the economics and these logistics, there is a real patient story highlighted by Placidway that I think perfectly encapsulates everything we've been analyzing. It's the story of James, a 55-year-old from London.
Yes, James's experience is the quintessential medical tourism journey.
James needed a knee replacement. He was in constant pain, and it was actively affecting his mobility and his ability to work. But under the NHS system, he was facing a staggering 25-week wait.
25 weeks.
That is nearly half a year, and that waiting period isn't just an inconvenience. It's a loss of livelihood, it's muscle atrophy, it's the psychological toll of waking up in pain every day, just waiting for the system to catch up to your needs.
And that waiting period is where the deep frustration with domestic health care boils over into action.
So James takes action, he uses Placidway, and they match him with a top-tier accredited hospital in Mumbai. Here's the outcome. He didn't wait 25 weeks. He had his surgery within 4 weeks.
Wow.
The total cost was less than a third of what a private procedure would have been in the UK. He noted that the doctors and nurses were absolutely outstanding, and a year later, he is completely pain-free and back to hiking.
His story proves the ultimate takeaway from all of this. Yes, the massive price discrepancy is the initial hook that gets people looking abroad, but ultimately, it's about access. It's about not having your entire life put on hold for half a year because of bureaucratic gridlock. It's about securing the expertise of high-volume surgeons and receiving highly personalized, continuous care.
So what does this all mean? When we pull all these threads together, the 14 million patients, the regulatory arbitrage, the strict JCI accreditations, and the deeply human stories like James's, we are looking at a radical, irreversible shift.
We really are.
Global healthcare is rapidly transforming into a borderless marketplace. Patients are waking up to the fact that they have ultimate choice over their bodies, their wallets, and their timelines. They don't have to just accept the default localized option anymore. Companies like Placidway are simply stepping in to provide the map and act as the navigators in this entirely new world.
And this raises an important question, one that builds on everything we've discussed today. If healthcare is rapidly transforming into a global, consumer-driven marketplace, a reality where patients will happily cross oceans for better, cheaper care, how long will it be until your local domestic healthcare systems are forced to radically change their own prices, administrative bloat, and wait times just to compete with the rest of the world?
That is a fascinating thought to leave on. Will the local systems finally adapt to the consumer? Or will they just keep watching millions of patients fly right over them to find better options? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. Keep exploring, keep challenging the systems around you, and keep questioning the world. We'll catch you next time.